Hello, I'm back. And I've been thinking a lot recently about Christianity and how it relates to politics. Now, I'm not really a politics guy. I don't really enjoy doing politics, talking about world wars or, things going on. I don't know. It's not really my thing. Anyways, turns out you don't need to be that well versed in politics to have a hot take on politics. Who would have thought that, right? Anyways, my hot take on politics is that conservative atheists don't actually exist. Now, of course, there are people out there who claim to be conservative and atheists, so it's not that they don't exist, literally speaking, but my point in saying that is that they are a paradox, an oxymoron, right? And the reason I say that is because of ethics and values, and I'll get into exactly how the argument goes. I'm kind of stealing some of the logic here from the argument for the existence of God, using moral absolutes, but I'm taking that and applying it to conservatism. So there is a philosopher and sociologist named Ruth Garoff who came up with the idea of the myth of metaphysical neutrality. And this is the idea that any set of beliefs can rest atop any given metaphysics with no correlation between them. Okay, so the example that Ruth gives in one of her papers is that of capitalist states. Now, if you believe and want to talk about capitalist states, then you must also believe in the principle of emergence, right? The idea that the sum can be more than the whole of the parts. And so a state is a emergent property from people, like gathering together in a society, right? And so the idea of emergent properties or emergence is a requisite belief for the capitalist states, right? And so if you want to talk about capitalist states, you can't do so meaningfully without also implying that you believe about emergence, right? That's the myth of metaphysical neutrality. And so the problem is that there's a large sector of people in America, at least. There was a Pew Research poll that said like 42% of conservatives aged 30 to 49 believe that or self-identify as atheists. And so there is a significant minority of people in the US that are committing Groff's myth of metaphysical neutrality. Okay? And the way that I see conservatism and atheism being kind of what's the word? Mutually exclusive, I suppose. So just like emergence is a requisite belief for capitalist states, theism is a requisite belief for conservatism. And I think the etymology of the word conservatism, or being a conservative, kind of shows that this is the case, right? So the etymology of conservative is conservare or something like that. It's Latin. It just means to conserve, right? Exactly what you would think it would mean. But what is it exactly that the conservatives want to conserve, right? Well, in America, North America, Canada, Europe, right, the West, the thing that conservatives are conserving is mainly the institutions that make the West, right? I'm thinking about things like our justice system, right? Like common law, the idea of human rights. I'm thinking about democracy. I'm thinking about the university. Okay, I'm thinking about marriage. All of these institutions are core to the Western ethos, right? The Western experience. And so when conservatives say that they want to conserve, they are talking about conserving those institutions. Now, those institutions, especially I'm going to hone in on the justice system, can only exist because of the values and doctrines that produced those institutions, right? So, for example, the church, in many ways the Catholic Church, but I'll just refer to it as the church. The church is the one that established marriage as monogamous and healthy and lifelong commitment, right? The church is the thing that promoted learning in the university, right? The emergence of scholasticism, right? This is because Christians believe that by studying creation, it reveals something about God's character, right? And of course, Christianity produced the justice system because it has this whole idea of humans as having free will and having the ability to choose between good and evil, and so they can be held accountable for their actions. And also, Christianity introduces the idea of unalienable human rights, right? People have a right to be treated fairly and with dignity, and be given all they need to survive, and things like that, right? So Christianity really produced and was enabled the emergence of these institutions that conservatives want to conserve. And so it's kind of intellectually dishonest to be a conservative and be an atheist, right? It doesn't really make sense to me. So I've made the link now between conservatism and at least Christian morality, right? And I think conservatives on the whole, they recognize this, right? And so this is why we have the emergence online of what these people are calling themselves as cultural Christians, right? So cultural Christians or political Christians, the idea is just that, well, we recognize the need for Christian morality, so we're going to take that, but we're going to rip it out of its context and just use it to like sort of justify our conservatism. And again, we're running into Groff's myth of metaphysical neutrality again, right? Here's more intellectual dishonesty, right? These ethics that produced the West, that moral system, that didn't just jump out of thin air either, right? That comes from the doctrines of Christianity, right? And you cannot just have the morality and the ethics all by itself. Then it hangs in the air, kind of dead, in a vacuum, right? Without any supporting, without any logical support, right? And so not only do you need Christian ethics to support the institutions that conservatives are conserving, but you also need Christian doctrine to support the Christian ethics. So we have kind of two layers of Groff going on here. So people, here, a little example to help you kind of imagine what it's like to claim Christian ethics without claiming Christian doctrine would be like somebody saying, well, I believe in Instagram and social media because I scroll on it all the time. I enjoy using it, on the whole. So yeah, I believe in Instagram and social media, but I don't believe in the microchip, right? The microchip is a requisite thing for social media, right? We could not build computers and smartphones and the internet as an infrastructure without the microchip. And so it doesn't make sense to say, well, I suppose that if I opened the phone, there'd be a microchip in there, but I don't really want to go to the trouble of opening the phone, Also, I don't believe in microchips. It's like, what? It doesn't really make sense, right? Because the microchip is a requisite belief or a condition for social media. In the same way, Christian doctrine is a requisite belief not condition, but a requisite belief for the existence of Christian ethics. One more way that people will try, or atheists will try to conserve their atheism while also being a conservative and remaining culturally Christian. And this also solves Ruth Groff's myth of metaphysical neutrality, is to claim another mechanism by which Christian ethics could have arose. And they will claim evolution, right? So they'll say, well, evolution gave us our moral sentiments and intuitions, and therefore we have no need for God, right? So we can have the ethics without the Christian doctrine, without believing in God. The problem, though, in invoking evolution as a mechanism for the emergence of ethics is there's two main reasons. So one, ethics is different in kind from the types of things that evolution produces, right? Evolution is a natural process that affects natural things, right? It does not influence things that are metaphysical, like ethics, right? This is like Hume's is-ought problem, right? This is like perennial famous thing, right? You cannot get an ought from a bunch of ises, right? Another ways of saying that is like you cannot say how things should be just based on observing how things currently are, right? Those two things are totally separate. And so you need some sort of authority by which you derive the ought. And for Christians, well, that's God. But even if atheists evoke the evolutionary explanation, they have no way of deriving an ought. So that's the problem. And secondly, the atheistic explanation for ethics is self-defeating. And that's because, well, they'll say, well, if evolution gave us our moral thoughts and intuitions, then what's stopping them from saying that evolution gave us all of our thoughts and intuitions, including the thought that evolution gave us all of our thoughts and intuitions, right? So it's self-defeating. So there's no reason to believe in any of it because evolution could have given me that thought as well. So it's self-defeating, right? That one's kind of hard to follow, but yeah. Anyways, so my point in recording this video and writing the essay that this is based off of is just to say that conservative atheism is a paradox. It's an oxymoron, right? You need Christian doctrine and ethics, but ultimately doctrine and belief in God and Jesus to justify conservatism. And if you search for long enough, you'll find that at the root of everything worth conserving is Jesus and the church. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to my newsletter, and I'll see you next time.